So we're all here today because all of us are somehow involved with textiles. Some of us produce them, some of us help producing them, some of us design them, and others are just simply in love with textiles. And the beautiful thing is that textiles are everywhere. I mean, the whole world is covered in them. It's one of the first things that get in touch with our bodies when we're born. We use them to screen ourselves from the environment every day and from others. But they come in hundreds, thousands of different colors, shapes, textures and patterns. And sometimes they're knitted, sometimes they're woven, sometimes they're made out of organic fibers, natural fibers, synthetic fibers, microfibers. There's infinite possibilities. But the interesting thing is that they're all man-made. We make them. They're the results of built-up knowledge of hundreds of years. And all of that knowledge and experience and craftsmanship and love for materials has actually been turned into beautifully crafted pieces that we can use to make whatever we wish. One way or another, textiles are everywhere again. They are a seamless part of our society, of our environments.
I remember that I really had this fascination and urge to touch textiles, and I was completely intrigued also by fashion and clothes, and also, I don't know, I just wanted to be part of the dream. I really like to also watch these catwalk shows and to dream what I could make. And I also really liked, I don't know, why are people wearing the stuff they actually wear? So I was always observing people. So I went to fashion school. And I remember that especially the first year, the first months, the world was suddenly so logic to me. It was really a comfortable place, actually. I mean, I learned about market analysis, trend research, branding, marketing. I felt completely comfortable. I knew what to do. I could analyze. You had the pull strategy, the push strategy. I could create need. It was so easy. And suddenly, I started to see target groups everywhere. And something else I also learned that year is clothes are really a way to express your identity. They tell who you are. They tell that we're all unique.
Taking a step backwards, as a fashion and textile designer and the education of fashion and textiles, we can actually see that we're always constantly pushed to be unique. The only thing that they're constantly telling you is you need to find your own way of expressing yourself, you need to be different than the rest, you need to show why what you're doing is valuable. But somehow this actually creates a very, very competitive environment, even when you're a student. That means that everybody starts holding all their ideas for themselves and not sharing any of them because everybody's actually afraid that that person, him, somebody might steal your idea, take it and turn it into something else. So this is the reason why I actually chose this image. We're trained to be hoarders of information, which is something ridiculous. We're trained to create our own private cabinets of curiosities in our own heads. And the question is again, why?
And also if we think about the students today, often if you ask them, why do you want to study fashion design? They answer, I want to have my own brand, I want to have my own label. They say, I want to be famous. But, I mean, I'm not saying that the schools are really, I don't know, selling these stories, but they are still part of it. And then it's the question, is this actually fair? Also to those young people that want to study fashion design. And is it actually what we need? Do we need these kind of ideas for fashion designers? So, something else that happened to me that year, of course, I also learned a lot about how things are actually made. So I had classes about a textile, about the production process, and it was such a disappointment, because suddenly I understood much more. I could actually see clothes as they really are. So I entered these shops, and suddenly I saw these really ugly t-shirts just hanging sadly on a hanger, and I realized that I had been projecting stories on these garments. So it was a kind of demystification of the brands, of what we see. But with that, I also came to realize that these stories that we believe in and that are told to us have a real impact. They create culture, they create behavior, they create need. So if we think of the future, if we think about tomorrow, we can also think about new narratives, new stories. Because as mentioned also this morning, we need those dreams. We are storytellers.
So, again, in fashion education, and in actually every type of creative education, it's like the question is maybe, why are we not teaching them to tell these new stories? Why are we actually turning them into this hoarders of information instead of gaining these skills the same way we gain them? I mean, when as creatives we have an idea, we work, we do our job. What we do is actually research, then we learn, we document it, and we tend to teach it, we tend to pass it on. And we do this in a sort of vicious cycle, and this is actually what feeds us. If we will just learn and research and not pass it on, we wouldn't go very far. We will just become empty and still. Learning and teaching is this process that puts us both in the position of saying, I'm an expert, but I'm also a student some days. And it's something incredible.
So it's the question also, why are we training the students? Why in these structures and systems, why are we not trained actually to create new and to question? Because if we go back to the story of being unique, I mean, come on, let's face it. I don't know if you're familiar with the work of these two, or of two photographers. They actually asked a question like, can we be unique? And they grouped, they kind of found people in the streets, and of course it's a bit exaggerated, but they're real people. And of course you can see they have this idea of, this is my story, this is who I am, I'm part of this group. And also if we look around the room, I mean, there's a lot of white, blue, grey suits, and it's completely fine. It's okay that we are kind of part of the same, that we're not that unique as we like to think. So that also raises the question, what else can we tell? What kind of stories? Instead of I'm unique, we need to be unique, we can also say I'm responsible, or maybe I care, or I share, I collaborate, I cooperate. That could be the new story. Because we need to see through marketing. We need to dismantle current stories and demystify toxic systems.
There is this quote that I really like from Jeremy Rifkin, and it says, the traditional assumption that knowledge is power and is used for personal gain is being subsumed by the notion that knowledge is an expression of the shared responsibilities for the collective well-being of humanity and the planet as a whole. This sentence for me actually really resonates with today, with the globalized world we live in. Doesn't it? I mean, we keep training each other in the same way we used to, but if we look at the younger generations, they don't live like this. They share constantly, and we can be annoyed by it. We can say they're always on their phones and they're always sharing information constantly. But actually, what they're doing is also teaching each other something constantly. Because by documenting by what you do and telling somebody else how to do it, the other person is also learning. So they're constantly sharing, learning, teaching, and they're actually already doing this process that we were talking about earlier. They are we have to learn from them, and they can learn from us, because in that position we can really go somewhere and really change something and start telling the stories we've been talking about, or helping them, creating them in a different way. So where does this actually lead us? So another example is actually a program that we have been organizing and instructing with Anastasia Pistofido, sitting here from Top Textiles, and Fiore Basile from Pablo Toscana. And it actually really resonates with everything that we have been saying right now as well. It's a program that we're launching this September 26th, and it's going to happen locally and globally. So we're going to have working groups in different locations all over the world, in labs, where we're going to help the students learn new skills and this kind of mindset. But it's also going to happen worldwide, in the sense that they're all going to share everything that happens constantly with each other and learn from each other. And then we are looking at programs like this, which is an upcoming one as well, which we're organizing together with Fairly Lighting, that is part of our advisory board, and Startup Mix. And actually, here again, collaboration is central. It's about creating multidisciplinary groups of young professionals and students, bringing them together to solve real challenges given by the industry, with real questions.
So it's really about circular solutions, new concepts and strategies to develop for those companies. And the call is open actually for companies to apply, but also for young professionals to apply. And I would just really like to invite everybody that's here actually to also be involved, and maybe also as an expert give feedback through calls. We can have a look. And to kind of go towards the end of the presentation, I don't know who read the book, I didn't, I have to admit, by Jules Verne, about going to the moon. And it's a book from 1865, and I'm not saying that because of this book we actually went to the moon, but it's with every book, every movie, every story, every image, we kind of plant seeds in people's consciousness, unconsciousness. So we need to be really aware of the stories we tell. And together we can actually create those new stories that will have a real impact and create structures and culture. So then together we can actually create the space for magic to happen. Thank you.
Thank you.